There was a study done by Harvard over the course of like 80 years or something. It's a pretty famous study. You may have heard of it already. But it was kind of an unprecedented study just because of its breadth and scope, because it took just hundreds of people into this study. And again, it was done over the course of like 80-something years. It was tracking all of these people for pretty much their entire life. And the study was meant to gauge and to find a way to gauge what made a person happy and successful in life. So again, just this brilliant long-term study of how this happens and what we need to do, what's going to predict someone's health, what's going to predict their happiness in the long run. And the headline, the title of the report that came out that summed up the study was this: good genes are nice, joy is better. Good genes are nice, joy is better. The results of the studies essentially then, they blew the scientists' minds, just blew their minds. Because what they found out is there's actually something that could predict better of how happy a person was going to be between the ages of 50 and 80, how healthy they'd be between the ages of 50 and 80. Something better than cholesterol, better than your blood pressure, better than family history, all of that. The number one factor that could predict your health was the quality of your close relationships. And it blew their minds, because like your close relationships were literally predicting your physical health. And they couldn't believe it. Just completely shocked them. The people that had the most healthy and the most satisfying relationships at age 50 were also the most healthy people at age 80. So the point being, and what the study really pointed out is, we can't underestimate how important those close relationships in our life are. We can't underestimate how important they are, not only for our mental health or our just overall well-being, but just even for our purely physical health, like your longevity in life. We know how important those are. The thing is, I think most of us already knew that. I didn't need Harvard to tell us that. Like we just kind of knew, just kind of had this instinct that whenever I have these relationships in my life, whenever I have those good, close relationships, yeah, things seem to go better, and life seems to be better, and I seem just overall to be healthier, and just things are better. Whether that be, in the good times or the bad, whether that's with mom or dad, husband, wife, brother, sister, friend, we just know when we have those, things are better. I mean, you think of just like when you're young and you fall in love, and all of a sudden you go from zero to hero real fast, and it's just like, man, life is amazing. Once you're in 7th grade and you find that cute little girl that you have a crush on, it's like, whoa, why is life so great now? Or it's like when you're 4 years old, I don't know if this happened to you, but you're 4 years old and you get lost in the grocery store. You turn around, and even though you're 4, you go, oh, cuss word. And you're just like, and mom's not there, and you're like, what am I going to do? So you start running up and down the aisles, and you find her, and you're just like, oh, you find mom, and everything's okay all of a sudden. Once that relationship is solid again, problem solved. It's like returning home from a long day at work or even from a long business trip, and your wife's there, your husband's there, and it's just like, okay, it's going to be okay. You come home from deployment. You're the new kid at school, and you finally find a friend. Right? Once we have those relationships, and again, this is just what we know. It's just our experience. Once we have that, things change. Our life gets better. Things are okay again. Why? The simple answer is just that we're wired for it. That's just how we are. That's what a human being is. Human beings thrive when they have those close relationships. We're wired for relationships. And it's not that we're wired to be social butterflies. Don't worry, fellow introverts, it's okay. But we're wired for those close relationships. It's what we need. It's what we thrive on. Harvard didn't need to tell us that, but they did. It's nice to know. Okay, I bring this up for lots of reasons. The first one is, our gospel today seems to be like a complete 180 from what we've been hearing for the past several weeks. For the past 4 weeks, the gospel has been taken from a section of Matthew where Jesus is just hounding the disciples about what it means to be his disciple and what it means to follow him on this mission. Right? We started several weeks ago. Jesus says, harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So we need some people to step up to start being the people to take in the harvest. Jesus started saying things like, people are going to hate you. You're going to go out to do this, and they're going to hate your guts. Some of them are going to try to kill you. He said to them just last week, you need to take up your cross and follow after me. So essentially the past several weeks, Jesus has been like, this is not going to be pleasant, but you're cut out for it. So here we go, boys. Then all of a sudden we get to today, and it's just like, come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I'll give you rest. Isn't that nice? And so it's kind of like, well, what happened to the other Jesus? What's going on now? The reason for this is because we've entered into a whole new section of Matthew's gospel. And in this section of Matthew's gospel, like there's probably a couple of months that took place between the first things Jesus said there and what he's saying now. In this section of Matthew's gospel, Jesus begins talking about the kingdom of God. One of the most important and one of the most central themes in all of the Gospels, but especially in Matthew's Gospel. Matthew really picks up on this. He'll call it the kingdom of God. He'll call it the kingdom of heaven. But now we enter into a whole new section dealing with that. The next 3 weeks, we're just going to be hearing parables where Jesus explains to us, and he's trying to help us to understand what this kingdom is. And so that's kind of what we just shifted into. That's why it can seem so weird. That's why our first reading from the book of the prophet Zechariah is talking about this king riding into town on a donkey. What should that make us think of? Palm Sunday, right? The day that Jesus, the king, rides into Jerusalem as the new king. So it's about this king arriving in his kingdom. Okay, so it's all tied into that. But we need to just keep it simple for today. We're keeping it real simple today. I've done this exercise before. It went bad, but we're going to try it again. When I say pink elephant, what do you think? Thank you. Good, this went better this time. When I say pink elephant, you think pink elephant. But when I say kingdom of God or kingdom of heaven, what do you think of? A lot of people are good Catholics and they're like the church because that's right. But other ones of us, we hear kingdom of heaven and we think, oh, that place we go when we're dead. And it has nice little clouds and nice little harps to play. And I'm looking forward to that. Some of us were also pretty good and we're like, all right, that's probably not the answer, so I'll think of another answer. Oh, it's probably the kingdom of God means whenever Jesus is king and we follow the 10 Commandments and all of the laws and all the governments in the world follow God. Not really. The kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven, when it comes down to it, the kingdom of God is not some socio-political something. It's not the place up in the clouds or something. The kingdom of God, the way that we find it, the way that we experience it, the way that we enter into it, it's through a relationship with a person. Spoiler alert, that person's Jesus. Right? When we enter into this profound, deep, and personal relationship with Christ himself, that's when we enter the kingdom. That's when we experience the kingdom. The fathers of the church, the people that lived like 16, 17, 1800 years ago, they had a very fancy word for this in Greek. And I'm a nerd, so I know it, and we're all going to learn it together. The word was autobasileia. They'd called Jesus the autobasileia. What does that mean? It's 2 Greek words just smushed together. Auto meaning itself, but basileia meaning like kingdom, as in basilica. Okay, so the kingdom itself. They'd called Jesus the kingdom itself, the kingdom in person. In other words, they didn't think of it as like, oh, here's this government thing that Jesus set up. No, it's just Jesus. It's Jesus himself. And the way that we enter into the kingdom is by entering into a relationship with Christ himself. And so, we even, like if you just read through the Gospels with this in mind, all of it makes more sense. Because what is Jesus' invitation constantly? Go follow the 10 Commandments. Nope. Go be a good person. Nope. Go learn more facts about me so I can give you a test and you pass it. Nope. Time and time again, Jesus has one simple invitation. Come to me. Come follow me. Come to me, today's gospel, come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, I'll give you rest. Right? Jesus' invitation always is inviting people into relationship with him. Why? It's because Jesus didn't need Harvard to tell him that when we have that relationship set up in our life, that most important relationship, that's when everything changes. It's not just some pie in the sky, maybe when I'm dead, things are going to be okay. It's like, nope, even now, by entering into relationship with Christ, things change. That joy, that peace, that happiness, that something that you've been looking for, that we look for in our work, that we look for in our Netflix, in our job, in whatever it may be, the thing that we're looking for, it's found in relationship with Christ. That's the kingdom. Again, Harvard proved that for us, but Jesus himself has been trying to get that across our attention for a long, long time now. So today, we're just going to be honest with each other. We're just going to be really simple, really straight with each other, okay? Because sometimes You know, what it feels like, I know this isn't true, but sometimes what it feels like is it's time for the monkey to dance up here for 15 minutes. And I know what you're thinking. It's 18, Father. I know you're counting. It's time for the monkey to dance up here for 18 minutes, crack a few jokes, keep you engaged. Things are going okay. Just keep it going, Father. All right. I get it. But we're just gonna be really simple and straight with each other today, so no one loses the point of what I'm saying or what Jesus is saying. It's gonna be okay. Some of you, not all of you, but some of you fall into this category. Some of you are carrying burdens right now that if you were to stand up right now and just share them with the church today, we would have the reaction of like not knowing what to say. We would just be like, we wouldn't know what to say. Some of you have endured suffering and evil in your life or caused suffering and evil in your life and in other people's lives that if you stood up and shared what that is with us right now, it would make our hair stand on end. Right? Some of the sins that you've committed, the suffering you've caused, like we just wouldn't know what to do with that if you told us what it is. Some of you, like the addictions that you have or that you have had, the decisions that you've made that you really hope no one ever finds out about, maybe it's the anger or the resentment or the lack of forgiveness that you hold really, really tight in your heart. Maybe it's just the sadness or the nothingness that you feel, even though a lot of people would describe you as a really jolly person. And they just have no clue that that's what's going on in your heart. Maybe it's just the emptiness, the isolation, the fear, the sadness, the brokenness, the anxiety about your kids, about your spouse, about your grandkids. We're just keeping it simple today. We have that. What 97% of us do is each and every morning we wake up and we put on this little mask. And the mask is the mask of, I'm fine. It's all fine. Other people deal with stuff. I have to deal with stuff. We're all dealing with stuff. It's fine. Or we put on the mask of convincing ourselves that it is okay. Everything is fine. Even though there's these things going on in our life, we just convince ourselves, nah, it's fine. It's all fine. It's what we do. But we work hard then. We start doing what people expect us to do. Take care of our kids, take care of our family. But what we do is we put on that mask and we just start pretending it's not there. But when we do that, the thing that we start doing is we start self-medicating. We start trying to take care of it in ways that sometimes we're not even aware of. What's the number one way that Americans love to self-medicate? Anybody know? Oh, it's number 2. The number one way that Americans self-medicate is through work. We love to work. But sometimes we love to work because we love to not deal with stuff. And so we start throwing ourselves more and more into our job, into the good things that we do. It's the good work we do. And yet we do that because we don't want to deal with that other stuff in our life. It's the number 2 way that Americans love to self-medicate. Food. Thank you. We love food. Love it so much. Number 3 way. It's a new way. It's come up recently. The number 3 way that we love to medicate now is through our leisure activities, which is code words for Netflix. It's code for our phone. I pointed this out to a group of 7th graders several years ago. I was like, after a long day at school and you just want to go home and watch Netflix for 9 hours, and they're like, yeah, that's great. It's like, that's probably just you self-medicating because you don't want to deal with something. And they just went like, no, it's not. Probably is. We do these things. So many others, alcohol, pornography, relationships with men and women that aren't healthy. We foist this onto our kids, right? We over-involve ourselves and over-invest in our children, telling ourselves we're good parents, but really what we're doing is just trying to make up for the shortcomings in our own life. Think about that one for an afternoon. Yeah, it's scary. These are the things that we do. We have all these burdens that we carry, all this stuff that we carry, this baggage that we carry, and we just pretend it's not there. And then we start self-medicating. And then we wonder why we feel so bad. And this, friends, is the definition of hell. The isolation that we place ourselves in. The little hole that we dig out for ourselves, telling ourselves we've got it. That's literally what the definition of our own personal hell is. What Jesus is asking then, so Jesus arrives, he becomes man, he shows up for all this today very explicitly in the gospel of the day, but in this section of Matthew's gospel as we begin today, what Jesus is asking us is, aren't you tired of that? Don't you wish things could be different? Don't you wish there was another way? Don't you wish that you could experience a joy and a gladness and a happiness that you can't seem to produce for yourselves? Don't you wish that life was just more than your work, more than all these other things? And then he makes that simple invitation, not go follow the rules better. Jesus makes this simple invitation yet again. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you'll find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. Right. We're wired for relationship. And not just relationships and good relationships with our spouse, with our brothers and our sisters, with our friends, with our family, as important as and essential as those are, and they are. But first and foremost, we're wired for relationship with Jesus Christ himself. Harvard's not allowed to say that. I'm allowed to say that. We're wired for relationship with Christ. And it's when we begin there that the life and the joy and everything that we've been looking for elsewhere, that's where we find it. And everything else in our life begins falling into place. Even in the midst, as Jesus said for the past several weeks, even though there's going to be suffering, even though there's going to be sacrifices, even though it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows, when we have that relationship with Christ at the center, everything else begins to fall into place as well. It's what we're wired for. So the simple invitation today, I'm not going to haul it and just dump it all on you today, but I think the simple invitation for us today is just to begin to acknowledge those things in our own life that we have. Those burdens that we carry, that stuff that we just hold really close to the vest and say, I'll just take care of it myself. I think it's time for us today just to simply acknowledge those, and then to take Jesus' invitation seriously and to say, Jesus, I'm going to take these to you. We don't have to go looking for the next self-help book. We don't need to go looking for the next whatever. The thing that we're looking for, the person that we're looking for, is right here. And he's inviting you. Just come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I'll give you rest.